the depth of your execution is more important than the breadth of your activity. There's a lot of people who, because they're not allocating capital back into their organization, don't worry too much about their positioning, because what they really do is take their clients and say, oh, you want this? Oh, yeah, we can do that. Oh, you want this? Oh, yeah, we can do that. And they're so NRR focused that they eventually cap out their ability to replace their service addressable market with new business, because they haven't essentially been something for someone very specifically.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Welcome to the Small Business Black Holes, the podcast that shines a light on the hidden challenges of scaling a business. Hosted by Alan Pence, each episode explores the critical shifts entrepreneurs make as they grow beyond $1 million, $5 million, even $30 million, and move from brute force to sustainable professional growth. Stay with us as we uncover what it really takes to escape the black holes of business and scale with intention.
We are back with the Small Business Black Holes podcast. We got a great episode for you today. We have Garrett Maragut from Directive. He's based out in California. So welcome to the podcast, Garrett.
Thank you. Glad to be here, Alan. Excited to chat with you.
Great. So tell us a little bit, just give us the overview. What does Directive do?
Yeah, I run an agency called Directive, which exists within kind of a holdco I created called More Good Capital. And then I run another agency called Abe. Directive does B2B marketing for tech and all professional services, manufacturing, industrial, whatever that is in B2B. And then Abe does exclusively LinkedIn advertising.
Very cool. And give us the idea of how big the company or companies are.
Yeah, Abe's just starting out. I pre-invested, I think probably like around $1 million in Abe. Since September of last year to start, Abe's scaling up right now, and it's on its way to kind of breaking even, hopefully in the next 90 days or so. It's got 3 to 4 accounts. I think we're about to get 6, so it's kind of big pipe, growing and just early phase. It's kind of fun to be back in the beginning of zero again. And then Directive's like 125, 150 people globally. We're in Mexico, Canada, UK, US, Australia, doing around 25 million.
Wow. Yeah, it's really fun to kind of go back to zero again. There's frustrations. So I'm doing it right now too. Like I had this government contracting business that's like with 120 some people. And, it's all like HR, and,
Well, doing the government price is cool too, because you have like steady guaranteed pipe. You have to be able to win the pipe, obviously, but
that's right. Well, it used to be that way. It's been a lot.
I don't have any government contracts to win. If I was in something where I did, I feel like it would be like, it would lower my CAC for sure and drive EBITDA. I mean, a lot of guys they use like these government type professional service firms as like float to then essentially fund higher acquisition things, whether it's M&A around it or organic capital allocation. Yeah, it's cool.
No, it makes a lot of sense in normal times. I mean, obviously with Doge and stuff, things have been a little crazy. But yeah, in normal times, you get longer term contracts, right? So you're going to take a hit on margin, but you're going to get a little bit more of a guarantee. Definitely more of it's not a guarantee, right? But, you got a 3 to 5 year kind of thing, gives you your base stuff. And then if you really want to, you can go out and invest in other, like you said, other higher margin things. Although the big challenge I've always found is, the processes you need to do, particularly if you're going to be a prime contractor with the government, requires so much administrative overhead that it almost forces you into doing more and more government work, right? So you got, so it's an interesting trade-off that I've
No, it
debated
sounds like a
many
very
times.
interesting. Are you allowed to work with other governments that are allies?
Yeah, you can work with almost all other governments that, like I think if you have security clearances and stuff.
So you could scale that way too, then within the infrastructure you created, right?
Yeah, exactly. So tell us a little bit about growing your business. So you've been at it for what, 12 years, you said? When we were talking before.
Yeah, right around 12 years. started on Fiverr selling $5 social media calendars, and market research using a library card, and then just bootstrapped it. Yeah.
I love it. Just hustling it, like, in the early days, like, now you would just use ChatGPT, but I guess the library card was like
Yeah, no, I mean, I work more hours now than I did back then. And honestly, I'm more enjoying the work more now. It's not fun work, but like I like to work harder now. I think the fear of losing is actually more compelling than the fear of fear of fail. I guess like or the success of winning. I think like fear of failing drives you. I think that's why when people become successful, they end up working harder than when they were trying to become successful. It's like this ironic thing you would have never guessed in your journey.
yeah, exactly. So as you went, we talked a little bit, like, there were definitely some plateaus along there. So just reflecting back, like, where did you find that? And, like, what did it take to get through it?
I think there's like the first area where we got stuck was 3 million. Um, I coach a lot of agency owners, after hours, and I help those guys too. I got a coach at 6 million that really helped. We're not there yet. So 3 million, what happens is your pricing. So like my background was economics. So I'm pretty decent at modeling. I did most of our finance. So we got to about 18 million. I still made a lot of like errors I didn't understand, which would be like the cost of middle management and the cost of like your non-billable infrastructure required to match the pace of growth. Like, for example, I think like I guess there's 3 big areas that like sub $5 million companies are really underinvested in and don't realize, which first will be middle management. So the pricing doesn't reflect what it costs to have middle managers. Second thing is like talent acquisition and professional services. We're essentially talent marketplaces where we're matching our talent plus methodology to the need of a group. So I think we're underinvested there a lot of times. And lastly, marketing. I think we're underinvested in marketing as percents of revenue a lot of times. And so I was underinvested in those 3 areas. And when I started to invest in those 3 areas at 3 million, it absorbed weight. I was still growing top line revenue, but it absorbed so much cash that we had a bad month of AR, and I like freaked out. I was like, oh man, we're not going to be able to cover all the bills because we were actually scaling ironically so fast at that time. So then we slowed down and then kind of got the infrastructure and then kind of skyrocketed again from there.
Yeah, that's definitely, I mean, it's very common about 3 to 4 million for companies that, yeah, I think you basically told the story perfectly, right? It's like you've got to invest in these, particularly management. And because you're, most likely if you bootstrap, you're a good marketer salesperson, right? So you're able to kind of do that. You get a bunch of stuff going, and then it's like you might not be the best operations person from the get-go, right? And so you're seeing all this growth, you're trying to throw bodies at it, and you're pricing wrong and all that. Yeah, so it really requires, I think it's very smart for you to think, all right, I got to pause here for a second, make sure I've got the right people.
When you raise rates, you have a new audience who has new expectations on delivery, new competitor sets that you're going up against, new expectations around how you offer service and what you service with. So, a lot, I think there's this like naivety around price that we're like more powerful than we are as business owners. The market dictates the price, and then you got to learn how to make money somehow in between. You can always be a niche provider, but if you're really trying to build something large in a category, you're not going to have as much elasticity on price as you think. And so we got to 6 million, and then COVID hit and we had a flat year. And then, because I bootstrapped it, I mean, a lot of our first clients are only paying $200 a month, you know what I mean? So like I was 20 or whatever, I think 21, 22 at the time. And then got to 6 million, had a flat year, hired a coach. And then I kind of at 6 million, I started building my first exec team. Started rolling out more structural planning, cadences, how we think about going to market, how we allocate our capital, what our positioning is in the market, what makes us different instead of better, right? Competing on differentiation instead of betterness. And then from there, I went from 14 to 14 million the next year, and then around 23 million the year after. And I've been floating between 23 and 25 for the last couple.
Wow, that's great. And is your leadership team kind of stayed steady through that, or is it?
No, it's evolved. I mean, I'm just like the owner of a sports team, we're not winning championships and competing at the highest level, then sometimes you got to change the carpet. So, just depends on performance, just like any other exec team.
Yeah, like what I found is, you get people in that are great at 6, and then you double the company, and they're just not. Company can grow faster than a person, right? So
Oh yeah, I mean, and that's part of life. I think in business, we're very asinine. We're very dumb. We're really stupid about people in business. In ways we're not in other parts of our lives. We're just kind of dumb, as all of us are, myself included. What I mean by that is like you don't think a fat guy's super fast, a short guy can dunk, a weak guy's gonna bench 500, and it's all very obvious in the sports world. And then you get in business and you think a slow reader can be a fast reader. Someone who's not at building can get great at operating. Someone who's great at operating can get great at building. We don't put logical, pragmatic constraints around the roles, responsibilities, and gifts of the people we hire, and then we wonder why we underperform.
yeah, I think that's a very good point, and I think we tend to look at everything as like a skill set, but we don't. I think we underrate what people bring to it and their natural abilities. Just like you said, the sports, it's like if you're not that tall, you're probably not going to be starting on the basketball team, right? So, but why do we think that?
I think we underrate loyalty too, though, because what then these guys do is all this. I think there's a lot of bad management advice out there. Like you got to hire the right exec team and elevate. Like that's bull crap. Like that does not. It's not real. There's no exec team you hire that it operates better with you not involved. Like that's just not how life works in any facet. That's not how top performing CEOs in the public space or in the privates. Like it's just not. It's all about execution. It's all about pace. It's all about attention to detail. And you got to empower your exec team. Well, I would say some what and why, not how. That their job to tell you how to do it, but what they're doing and why they're doing it's your job, and making sure the level of execution matches your standards is critically important if you want to be competitive. But I think what people do is they get at that 6 million range, like, all right, I need a new exec team. They're not wrong about needing a new exec team. But what they do though, is I don't think they always take a look in the mirror and take inventory around who they were as the CEO at 6 million and what their roles, responsibility, and their gaps were and their weaknesses were. And then they bring on a new exec team, and guess what? They still get stuck at 6 million because we're the problem. We're the owners. We're the CEO. Like, we're the reflection. It's not the exec team. There's no magical exec team CEOs hire that then change their lives. That's just a fallacy. You need a great one, don't get me wrong, but it comes down to you. Like, you're the culture. You're the standard.
There's no team that overcomes your shortcomings.
No. And then we got to do the whole team and say, what were they great at? And can you honor those people and find individual contributor or unique roles to get leverage? Because I think a lot of guys throw away amazing people that are hyper loyal at the early stages that have deep areas of competency, and they're just not willing to have hard conversations to restructure their role, responsibility, and compensation to where they're currently at. And I think you lose a lot of what makes organizations special if you also don't take a moment to try to find roles and places for people that might not be able to context switch or have as much breadth of knowledge across larger groups when they're managing them, but have deep areas of competency. And I don't think you should lose those either. So it's like, yes, you might need a new exec team. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't try to have hard conversations to figure out how to, keep the old focused,
Yeah, all very true. So let's move into, you talked a little bit, I thought was an intriguing thing, is trying to position yourself based on differentiation rather than being better. So say more about that.
I don't think it's that easy to sell professional services or any product, frankly. It's hard to sell things. There's a lot of competition. There's not a lot of barrier to entry. So you got to it all comes down to unit economics when it comes to professional services, for example, because you're going to get valued on EBITDA, right? So to me, gross margins are your most important KPI because it's this articulation of how efficiently you can deliver value to your customers. And the reason that matters is the easiest way to improve your gross margin is to be able to raise rates. But price is not as elastic as we assume just because we think we're better at something than someone else. And so when everyone else is selling apples, you can only sell your apple for so much more. If you want to be able to raise rates, you have to convince the marketplace that you are selling oranges and you're the only one with oranges. So you'd set the price on how much orange costs. And they have to believe you so much that they're willing to pay the price instead of getting the cheaper apple. And that to me is the game of, what we're trying to do with differentiation.
Yeah. And so how would you tell, so you like from an agency standpoint, okay, so your example, how do you go through that process? So you're doing, say you're an agency, you're doing all sorts of different stuff. You're doing SEO, digital ads, all this stuff. So how do you think through this process of differentiation?
Yeah, so I did a post on this on my LinkedIn, where I was just talking about like the different levels of niching. Like I think it's like you probably want to do like a triple niche, what I call. So your triple niche would be like a singular service for a singular um group, and then within that group a subgroup, like a singular role. So like an example would be Abe, like the new agency I launched, where I do LinkedIn ads for B2B companies servicing the director of marketing. What that does is it creates the ability for differentiation. So what I say is like the depth of your execution is more important than the breadth of your activity. So there's a lot of people who, because they're not allocating capital back into their organization, don't worry too much about their positioning, because what they really do is take their clients and say, oh, you want this? Oh yeah, we could do that. Oh, you want this? Oh yeah, we could do that. And they're so NRR focused that they eventually cap out their ability to replace their service addressable market with new business, because they haven't essentially been something for someone very specifically. And unless you're something for someone very specifically, it's hard to allocate your capital and essentially hit your CAC target when selling commoditized services or products, which almost everything we all sell is commoditized. And so by niching deeper and doing less things different than others with more efficacy more often, you do start to get a little elasticity on price. You create a pull function with your brand. People start to know who you are. You become recognizable for something to someone. And I think it's the death blow of business today is these software companies in particular. So Directive is the largest software marketing agency in the world. And we also do B2B, and we're kind of now B2B because we need to expand our TAM. So it's the opposite as you get bigger. You unniche the bigger you get, so you can do M&A and you can essentially drive NRR and lower CAC and increase EBITDA. But when you're small, you want to do less things, ironically, right? And so what I would say is like, as you're growing, it just is unique to your stages of where you want to be. And, you got to differentiate yourself by being brutally honest about how you're positioned in the marketplace, and ask yourself, would you really pick your agency at that price, or would you pick someone else,
Yeah, like would you recommend, so say like with Abe, you're saying, all right, I'm doing this one service and I had this B2B market, B2B companies. But would you go down to like, I'm only going to do advertising agencies and the director?
I would, if you didn't have as much capital as I have, I guess. I'm lucky enough to have the capital, but even within Abe, while the positioning is B2B, I'm not allocating the capital to go after B2B. I'm allocating the capital to go after what I believe are the segments that are going to have the highest ACVs and best win rates. And so I'm not
Can you say ACV? What is that?
average contract value. So I'm essentially trying to figure out what organizations will pay me the most often, and I think I could competitively win with my case studies, work samples, and experience in their category. So even though the macro positioning is B2B, I'm not going after B2B right now with Abe in the beginning. I'm staying kind of focused on a few niches that I think are most valuable.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, because I'm going through this myself with my new business. So I have Owner Institute. I'm moving into like a SaaS. Have you ever heard of the app Noom? Like the weight loss app? Yeah. So they pioneered this whole like, we're gonna do small chunks. We're gonna take a big problem, break it down into small chunks,
How do you eat an
a-
elephant? Yeah.
and then give you like reinforcement and community around. It's a lot of cognitive behavioral therapy kind of stuff. They're blown up. I think they're like 500-600 million in ARR right now. But so I want to take that approach to actually like small business planning. So through my coaching, so I want to turn it into this. Hey, you got this big. Instead of going and doing EOS and all these methodologies that are great, It's like, I'm gonna help you. I'm gonna figure out what are the 1 or 2 problems your company has, right? And then how can we break down a process so that it's piece by piece, you get guidance along the way and get support, right? Same theory. So then the question is, how do you position that, right? It's like you're a software marketer, right? So gets the free advice there. Like, do you go in and say, hey, look, I'm gonna target this at professional services? Are you thinking, or is it like, hey, I gotta go niche down?
I don't think you should sell a methodology. I think you should sell an outcome to a specific group that finds the most value in the outcome. So in other words, like I would take that same business and specialize it into churn prevention for agencies. Right? It's a universal problem for every agency. And then your methodology would be essentially, here's how we break down the churn problem into small steps. So I think what you're trying to do is sell a methodology, and I don't think you can market a methodology because it doesn't have any intrinsic demand. So I try to take something and anchor it. So like when I started Directive, it's like, all right, cool. I want to go into consulting. I'm 22 years old. No one with money is going to hire me to do management consulting. I'm an idiot, right? Like I don't know anything, but they don't know the internet. I could probably learn the internet and charge them for it, right? And so I'm always kind of just looking in the mirror. So what I would do is I would essentially attach the true superpower, which is the ability to solve the problem, to a repeatable problem. So I could go deeper and more efficiently, and I could create scale and headcount. Because, when humans do lots of things, they do each thing worse than the last. They don't get better as they go. Like context switching doesn't improve efficacy as you scale and delivery. So I would really focus into like solving the largest problem to the biggest audience who had the most value in me solving it for them. And that's how I post EBITDA.
Right. But you would think of it as like a very tangible, like,
I would translate it correct. I would associate your methodology to an actual in-demand problem so I could sell the solution to the problem, not the methodology in a nebulous manner. Correct.
right. You got it. Yeah. It's interesting because I think about it. I'm like, all right, so EOS was created and scaling up in these programs, and they've gotten some amount. They obviously have.
Did he scale up though, or did he write a really good book and then happen to then scale up?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I think it always starts with essentially the CAC function. My point being is like if you offer a solution that no one's searching for, you don't have anyone in market. And when you have no one in market, your CAC skyrockets and absorbs EBITDA. So in all these cases with the EOS guy, he wrote a dope book. Great job. Hell yeah. And then he turned it into a business. But I don't think, unless I'm missing something here, it wasn't like EOS was this huge business and he wrote a book.
Well, actually, he refined. I think what they did is there was originally this Rockefeller Habits book that became Scaling Up, and then the guy was like, "Hey, scaling up's too complicated, so I'm going to write another book to."
Yeah, I'm people getting stuck trying to apply this kind of nebulous, cool idea. What if I turned it into a program and made a bunch of money doing info sales? I mean, it's not a bad idea. What I'm trying to explain is like, it almost always starts with, do you have enough audience? And I don't know if Alan Pence has a big enough audience to sell a methodology yet, but he probably could figure out a really big problem that his methodology uniquely solves better than others, and then position himself as that so he could capture the in-market demand.
I love it. I love that way of thinking through it. Right? It's like you might have like a generalized idea, right? But then you go and look at, like, just what you said, what's the audience, right? So like, and what are they absolutely dying to get?
Correct. Because if there's not demand, it's really expensive to create demand, and less than 1 billion people, 1 in a billion, are actually able to create demand for anything. It's like getting struck by lightning if you can actually create demand for something. That's why category creation has that weird thing that happened like 5 years ago that totally sucked. It doesn't work because it's too expensive to create a category. And then everybody looks at like a super famous person with 3 million followers on TikTok and they're like, create a category like I did. And it's like, well, I mean, I don't have the audience to do that, nor the budget to promote it so much. And then it has to actually be authentic enough that people believe you. So there's a lot that goes into creating demand that I think people get wrong.
Yeah. So let's take the LinkedIn ad thing. Okay. So that is an existing category. It's a service, probably relatively commodified service, right? And I assume there's groups of people out there, like, you're a software company. you probably have been told, hey, LinkedIn is a way to go sell B2B software, right? Is that sort of okay? So then, how do you prevent yourself from just being like the other 50,000 marketing agencies that are marketing to LinkedIn?
Well, number one, let's get largest advertiser globally on the platform. So I think that doesn't hurt. So I've got clients like AWS, Dropbox, and then like recently in the news, like Wiz, Gong. In cybersecurity, I took Sentinel One public, Varonis, Wiz.
So you have like marquee clients that you can compete. You can basically say, hey, look,
I have $100 million in spend in the last 5 years on the platform.
right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you, but is that from Directive, and now you're breaking?
Yeah, it's from Directive. The problem is like when you run a platform, you can't talk about any one of your features so much that you devalue the platform.
Right.
So to me, what happened is like, but to get deeper into your point of how I got there was I pioneered gift cards for demos. So like, hey, take $100 gift card and to see our products.
Yeah.
I'm running most of those ads.
So your innovation was really like, I had a promotional idea that can get, growth hack for people. So like you pioneer that.
I figured out how to make LinkedIn a direct response channel for mid-market and enterprise organizations with high ACVs. Something everyone says can't be done and still says can't be done. And then I don't advertise on LinkedIn like anyone else and built my own methodology, to your point earlier, Alan, called customer generation. And essentially, I'm not using LinkedIn's data, and I'm using regression analysis, other economic and statistical principles.
There you go, economics.
To figure out essentially what is like the private information that like, so if I take a customer, let's say like myself, right? And I say, okay, what do I, in my current clients, for the ones who pay me the most and spend the most on LinkedIn, what are their traits? Which one, and what are those firmographic traits? What are those psychographic traits? And what are the titles of the contacts? And at the account level, how much headcount do they have? What industries are they in? What technology that's scrapable on their website do they have? And then most importantly, I use AI agents and reasoning models to take the private data that's not publicly available and run a regression analysis to say what has a statistically significant T-stat to the private data that's public. In other words, if I want to, so like, what would be the character traits of a software company that's spending over $100,000 a month on LinkedIn? That data is private. You cannot scrape that. You cannot determine it. But what could I use to determine it, knowing it? So what we do is we take the clients of every one of our brands, enrich them, run regression analysis, and say, when your ideal customer has these 3 targetable traits, the ACV is 5x and the close rate's double. And we then go out and find every one of those accounts globally, and we only advertise to named accounts. It's like ABM on steroids. We call it like TAM-based advertising. And so we have a better methodology than anyone in the world. And the proof points, and I spend personally around $3 million a year on the platform. So if anyone else is better than me, I don't know why they're not spending so much.
So that's account-based marketing, and TAM is total addressable market. Just so the idea is, okay, so in your case, you are selling a methodology, but your methodology
anchored to a specific application that has demand. And that was my recommendation to you earlier.
And so what you really realized is like, hey, I can go, these guys all are trying to sell to this group of people. I can go figure out these proxies that can help me understand who the people are spending on LinkedIn, and those are my target, they're spending X amount or whatever.
Yeah, for me, right? Like I had 10,000 accounts I wanted when we were at 6 million. So I have a good story, man. I held sales calls with 6,800 accounts in 18 months. And that's how I got from 6 million to 23 million. So a lot of people, this is the thing about me, and I think this should be the thing about every person who owns a company. Be the best in the world at what you do. Be the best in the world at what you do. And if you're so dang good at it, why don't you do it for yourself? I'm so tired of everybody saying how great they are, and then they don't do it for themselves. You're not that great then. You're just not. Sorry. Like if you were actually where you'd go for yourself.
So you're the physician heal thyself first, right?
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. Every person in the world is selfish. Every person in the world individually motivated. And if the agency was so good at any one thing, they would be doing it for themselves to become successful. And if they're not able to do it for themselves, maybe they're not that good at it and they don't believe in it as much as they say they do. And for us, like when I was just an SEO shop, little guy, I won the Allstate account when I was 23 years old. I still have it today. Like, how did I win it? I ranked really well for local SEO. And then we became an SEO shop that did more than just local. I ranked #1 globally for SEO agency. If you're so good at SEO, why don't you rank yourself? I think that mentality is what allows you to be good in this game. Is like, you have to try to be the best in the world at what you're selling.
Yeah, exactly. And I think so. The takeaways I have from it are, before we close out, the other thing I wanted to kind of hit on was, outside of what we just talked about, how do you see the B2B marketing space changing, based on LinkedIn or what we're seeing with LinkedIn or AI or any of the new developments in the space? Like, because I think what you said there has been true forever, right? Go.
Yeah, I'm all for his principle. I'm a very simple guy. Like, I don't make anything that complex.
Right. So, but are the things you're seeing in the space that you're like, hey, B2B marketing is really changing? Like, you got to get on top of this.
It's changing. I think the biggest thing that's changing is, software dominates the S&P 500. It dominates the stock market. It dominates like technology dominates right now, but I think it's going to get really, really, really disrupted. Because my own purchase patterns and decision making is changing. AI has enabled companies to go back to creating custom software to their exact use case in a way that's actually cheaper than large platforms with seat-based pricing. I can build a better front-end wireframe than any design shop could make me in 30 minutes in Lovable now. And then I can find developers who don't need a lot of the executionary nature of writing code to be done through now AI again, the execution level. What it's going to do is it's going to put a real threat on seat-based pricing. And it's going to make software a commodity very, very quickly here. And what's going to happen is organizations and companies that historically, like let's say me for my agency, right? Right now, I would historically use what's called a PSA software, professional services, automation type software, right? Where you run kind of an accounting firm on it, you run a plumbing business on it, you run, maybe a plumbing business is different. That's where Service Titan comes in. But the case is like the software that organizations operate on, invoicing, billing, staffing, resourcing, utilization rates, direct margins, all these things. No tool is very good, and they all know it. That's why they have solution architects in their sales process. And operating software ends up always being custom software that has these constraints. And that's why we still all use Google Sheets and Excel all day, is because software has these constraints when we buy it in a software as a service SaaS model. If you've got 150 employees and you're rolling out a 65% fit software on $100 a month cost per seat, or you could now build it all in Google Sheets, send it to a dev and say, make this for me. I bet you if you did a 36-month forecast, you'd save 75% owning and operating your own software in 2026. So that is what's changing the world right now. I mean, not everyone's there yet, but they will be very soon.
So what then becomes in professional?
It's just exposure. Like, I don't know. I have 3 full-time AI people who are building all this tech internally. And when they show me a front-end wireframe, when they're not designers, that's better than anything I've ever got from a design group. And they did it overnight, and we met at 3 p.m. and I woke up at 7 a.m. and I had the exact prototype that I had spec'd out, fully clickable Figma walkthrough type environment, and it completely works. I was like, oh crap. So the only reason it's not a bigger threat right now is that I'm the weirdo 33-year-old guy who's got 3 full-time AI employees who can show me that. Most people just don't even know. Once they knew, they would and then they had this big thing they were trying to do, and their team were getting them quotes, and none of the products quite felt right. They had a little bit of the builder bend to them. They would immediately go, "Why don't we just build this? Now we can." And it's really changing the dynamic of how we build things.
So where do you think that pushes value then in sort of like the B2B space? Like, is it all internal at that point? Like,
Problem solving is still, I think, ironically, like the Deloittes and the McKinseys and the Bains and the Bostons are all going to get a boon from this, because the value of execution. So like a lot of agencies, right, who get paid as what I would call like their positioning is somewhat staff augmentation. In other words, they're not like, what I try to explain to people is the reason you can't do lots of services is the way you should design any service business, in my professional opinion, is that within a few years, you could win the biggest, best contract in the space, and you have a reasonable path to get there. But if that isn't true, you shouldn't be in professional services, because there is no way to make margin other than on price. Like, there isn't this magical delivery efficacy in services businesses that allow you to retain clients. It's still a relational business, and relationships take time. There's this concept of capacity and what I call relational capacity that creates constraints on your gross margin that forces price to be a function of EBITDA. And so as you look into the future and how this changes things, is anyone who isn't trying to be the best, let's say, my audience is small business owners, and I do everything from email to marketing to print to Yelp to GMB, that staff aug kind of positioning is going to consistently get diluted right here. And it's going to go back to, once again, specialized service providers with a methodology and point of view that creates depth around a concept, a deliverable, or a tactic, or an idea. So I really think that the kind of staff aug generic players are going to struggle.
yeah. So you're not going to be able to specialize necessarily on some individual customer set, or if it is specialization, it has to be deep, right? So it's like, it might be something around.
If you did everything for plumbers and then you mastered the needs of plumbers, and then you could start to sell everything from invoicing to scheduling to on-site iPad software. Once again, you could do the service time model. That's great. But if you're doing professional services, the consulting firms that are powering the prompt and essentially understand how to solve the problem with technology are going to be more valuable than the execution of the solution.
Yeah. So wait, say that in another way. So the people who are doing the prompts.
So like identification, creation, design, planning, strategy, that will end up being the value of professional services. The value won't be the management.
Right. The actual the actual bodies.
Like let's think about a CPA firm. The value of the CPA firm will be the tax planning, not the closing of the books. Eventually, those administrative, repeatable, conditional logic, like Dicker repeating things, are not far away already from AI being able to reason and repeat. And so the executionary things that we do multiple times throughout the year in similar fashions, like closing the books, for example, will become automated by AI in the next 30 seconds.
Yeah, that's perfect. And so I work a lot with a company called Simple Numbers. This guy, Greg Crabtree, came up with this whole concept around how do you simplify numbers for the business owner. And he's come up with a series of insights through that, which is like the importance of leverage on labor, right? And how labor is your largest cost. So you should measure the efficiency of it and look at the direct versus management.
Per FTE should be over 200K for professional services.
So he really went deep on that. And, but like he went from being a CPA that paid people's taxes to developing a system to help mostly small companies get on top of their numbers and use them to actually run their business. So that's probably more what you're going to see in the future.
Yeah, and then he'll be able to do intake, and then the AI from his data lake and BigQuery or AWS or whatever, or Microsoft Azure, will then analyze the uploaded data from the client, and then it'll format it into the methodology that is created, and you will not have like BPO in Indonesia or an outsourced team in the Philippines, he will literally have sales guys, marketing, ops leaders, but junior level labor is gone in the next 36 months.
Yeah, I think BPO is the first thing, then junior level labor, then it kind of works its way back.
Any large data set analysis, like we used to have to manually verify PAM, right? So we build that for you, we export it. You got to think it's legit. We built AI that outperforms with accuracy the BPO provider already. So like we've already removed BPOs from Directive today.
Wow, that's incredible. So in essence, though, what you're saying is in the future, for professional services, the methodology meaning the way you solve problems based on the data you've collected, right,
Your point of view on how the world works, yeah, ideally,
is going to be
and it should be antithetical to commonly held beliefs, right? Like if you really want it to be sexy and have a pull, everybody says, this, you want to be the person that says the world's not flat, it's round, and I'll prove it to you. Like that's, what you want to be.
Yeah. So I do think that this idea about personal branding, having this point of view, that's going to be the key. And in the days of like, I think about it, like I thought your accounting firm is perfect because it is like bookkeeping. It's the most commodified thing in the world, right? And like, that's just going to be automated. That's going away. But how to use your numbers to make your business drive faster, most people aren't going to be able to, that's still a higher level thing that consultants and professional services provide.
Yeah, how to think about solving a problem and how to solve a problem in the theory is still going to come from humans for a little while.
Yeah. Well, Garrett, this has been awesome, man. You're a total thought leader in marketing and particularly professional services. I love it. I'm sure your agency is going to be like $100 billion pretty soon. So after you take over all the other agency business. So.
I just got to figure out. It's been tricky to grow in this macroeconomic conditions. I haven't been able to figure it out yet. So it's a fun problem to solve. Hopefully I'll be able to figure it out.
Well, if anyone's going to do it, it's going to be you. So thanks for being on. It was great talking to you guys.
Thanks, Alan.
You've been listening to the Small Business Black Holes podcast with Alan Pence. For more insights on mastering the new game, follow @apent, that's APENTZ on X, and make sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss a single episode. Thanks for tuning in, and remember, in today's world, you don't follow the rules, you write them.